Hi, this is Bryce with Frostbite Cosplay. This weekend at A-Kon, we were talking with Evil Ted about the way that we use exported game files in our cosplay creation. And it kind of sounded like that's something that some people might be interested in learning how to do. Now, the method is going to depend a lot on what game you're using. For today, we're going to stick to games that are created in the Unreal Engine. If your game uses a different engine, then this method won't work. You'll have to use a different exporter and different things like that. But if your game is built in the Unreal Engine, like Borderlands that we've been doing a lot of lately, then this is going to work great. So to start off with, the program you're going to need is called Umodel. This is available at gildor.org, and what it does is it just lets you go in and find the assets from any game that is built in the Unreal Engine and click through and look through them. So come in here, download it. Once you get it, let's minimize all this stuff. You've got Umodel here. We'll go ahead and open it. Now, there's a couple of different methods to doing this. Most of the time when we're doing things, just to speed it up a little bit, we're only looking at this for the skeletal mesh and the static mesh because I just need them to make a pattern. So we're going to come in, we're going to find our game, so we'll go into our program files, here into Steam, Steam apps, common, find Borderlands, there we go. Okay, and so we're going to tell this to pull it up, and it's going to find all of our different files here. Now Borderlands, all of the different files are in albums, are in folders named after different flowers for the DLC, and Willow Game is going to be the main game. So for today, just because I know where it is, we're going to do a Buzz Axe. So we're going to come in here to Iris, to Content, into the Battle Pack here, tell it to open. And this is going to bring up these 3D meshes. And so we can cycle through, we can look at these different meshes. You can spin around them and look if you would like. There's no texture on them because, again, we didn't tell it to include the texture because we were trying to speed things up and kind of minimize our file size. So let's come back here, and here's our Buzz Axe. So, in order to save that, what we're going to do is just come up here to Tools, tell it to Export Current Object, and it's going to save that in our export file. Now, let's say that you're not looking to bring the 3D model into Pepakura, that you want to look at it as a reference photo. In that case, leave this all enabled. You can even add sounds and scale forms, things like that, face effects. But let's go ahead and leave everything enabled. Click OK. You have to select the game. I apologize for that. So, okay. So everything's enabled. We're going to come back in here. We're going to select, not that program file, it's that program file. There we go. Steam. Steam apps, common, Borderlands 2. There we are. And here we have everything. So we'll come in here to Iris again. Same thing. Enter battle. And now all of a sudden, because we've pulled in everything, not just the meshes, we have all these different light and texture maps and everything to cycle through. So there's a lot more involved here. But if we cycle through it far enough, through the assets, we'll come to the 3D models. Here we are. So now they've got all of the textures and everything we can go through and look at for your reference photos if you want to see, you know, where the cell shading is or what color things are or just angles that are hard to see in the game. You've got access to these for phenomenal reference photos. And so again, if we come cycle through here until we find our Buzz Axe. There we are. Now you can see all the different colors and stuff involved and get a really good look at it. And if you want to, again, you can come up and you can export this as well. It'll pull it in with everything. Now, when you're on here, if you know the name of the name of the file you're looking for, you can go through and filter and look for it, but you've got to know what you're looking for. Some games are going to be more user-friendly than others. Some will have a file that contains all of the character skins based on that character's name. Some will be more chronological, like here in Borderlands, if you come into the Willow game, it goes more or less by level for a lot of the stuff. And so it just kind of depends on what you're looking for, where you're going to find it, and needing to know what you're after. It's going to vary game to game. But anyway, there's a basic rundown of how Umodel works. It's a fantastic program. So now that we've got our file, let's go ahead and come out here. We're going to get into Blender, clean out all of these that we don't need. Okay, come in here to File, and we're going to import our file. Now, in order to do this, you're going to need to get a Blender extension to open up PSK files. They're easy to find. You can just get on Google and track that down. But we're going to come in here. We're going to open up a PSK file. Come in here to Desktop, to the Umodel, to the Export, Battle, 3D Mesh. Or sorry, okay, so we want the static 3D Mesh and the BuzzAxe. And here is our one that we initially downloaded. That it's just a 3D model. It doesn't have any textures or anything on it. So here we are. Now if we wanted to go in and edit it, we could go into edit mode to be able to break it apart into smaller pieces or make whatever alterations we need to, things like that. That's another video to cover how to break pieces down. And with the BuzzAxe, it's not really necessary. But if you were doing a suit of armor, breaking down the helmet versus separating the helmet from the chest, from the arms, and stuff like that can be pretty useful. And this is where you would go in and do that, is in this edit mode. But for now, let's go back to object mode. We're going to go to File. We're going to export it. And we're going to export it as a wavefront OBJ. We'll just go ahead and save it on the desktop. We'll name it BuzzAxe. There we go. Export it. And now we have it. Okay, so next let's open Pepakura Designer. Here is where we're going to make our pattern. So we come in here, we bring in BuzzAxe. And here we have our BuzzAxe. Let's set the width as 80 millimeters. I think we need to be a little thicker than that, but that's going to be a pretty close guess. So here we are. Here is our BuzzAxe all ready to go. And now, once we've built it, we can go through, because we're going to make it out of foam, and we can include the teeth on this wheel because those were in the painted on texture, not the 3D model. But they're easy enough to add those little details when we get to that point. So if we were going to do this whole pattern, and again, this is kind of another video, but we'll show you kind of the basics. We would come in here, we would tell it to unfold, and then as you can see, it creates just this big mess here. And so what we would do is, first off, we'd come in here to 2D menu, get rid of the flaps because we're using foam and not paper. And then we would right click using the join and disjoin tool. We can go through and select our pieces. We can use the edge color if we want to, clean these up, because we're not going to do any kind of folding here since it's made out of foam. Honestly, in this one I wouldn't even do that dart probably. And so we can go through, we can clean up our pattern. You can look at these pieces and see, where things need cut to make the cleanest pattern, and how you want to go about doing that. Just using that cut and our join and disjoin pattern. So for here, let's say we wanted to do this as two pieces of the handle, since there's a little bit of a gap between them. We could do this. That's going to create the top and the bottom part of the handle. We can do a slight sanding on that bevel there to create the gap between the two and have a nice, pretty handle. Again, using the edge color, we can go in and wipe out these fold lines that we don't need, since we're using foam and not paper. Like I said, Pepakura is a lesson for another day. We don't really have time to get into it all today. That's a pretty in-depth thing. But so we've got our pattern here. Let's say we've got it all ready to go. The pattern's set. Now we just need to size it. And this is where Armorsmith Designer is going to come in. This is a fantastic program made by the Armored Garage that lets us create a 3D model of ourselves. So you have the standard mannequin, and what you can do is you can come in here to the property grid and you can scale him up. So if you need to make him taller or wider or whatever you need to do, this is where you can do it. You can also just drag and drop, but it's easier if you come in and put in your own measurements to create your character however big you need him to be. Once you've got it sized accordingly, we can come in here and File, Import, Desktop, find our BuzzAxe. Did I not save our BuzzAxe? Okay, let's save our BuzzAxe to desktop. There we go. That makes a difference. Okay, so file, import our buzz axe. There we are. We're going to tell it to attach. And we're actually pretty close. I like that size. But that's going to let us take and scale that prop to our person. Now, if we wanted to make it bigger or smaller, all we would have to do is come in here to scale. And we can grow or shrink it, whatever we need to make it appropriate to the person. And so let's say we want it this size. We want to go big. We can come down here, and it's telling us that in order to get that scale, we need to increase that by 1.16. And so what we'll do is, again, we'll come into Pepakura, that I should have just left open, but that's okay. Open it up, bring in our buzz axe again, and then we'll come into Settings, Change Scale, Set Scale, and here's where you're going to have to do a little bit of math. Is that we'll take whatever is going to be the easiest, so we'll use 80, multiply that by 1.16 that we needed, and that means that in order to get that size, we change this to 92.8, and that's going to give us a prop that is the same scale as this one here. Same thing if we needed to make it smaller. We could, scale this down, shrink this back to its normal size, and instead of multiplying that by the 1.18, we can come into this, set the scale, multiply it by 0.56 or whatever you need to do to create whatever size that you want to get the scale that you're after. And then that's basically it. Now you've got a pattern, it's appropriately sized to you, it's going to be game accurate, and you're good to go to start building and creating your piece. So I hope that this kind of general introduction is helpful to you guys. It's a good way to be able to get in and make easy patterns and build things the way that you want them to be out of the game. Some games have higher quality assets than others. Sometimes you need to go into Blender and smooth things out, or however you need to work things to make it look the way that you want it to. But like I said, this is just kind of a basic introduction and talking a little bit about Umodel. So we'll be doing more videos in the future, talking more about Pepakura, explaining things a little bit more. We'll go over a little bit more in Blender and such. But for now, thank you guys for joining me, and I hope that you found this beneficial.